Well, this is a real treat for me. I had to put these notes together rather quick, working off a bio. Bob called me last night. Thank you for doing that. To give me the opportunity to introduce our guest speaker, someone I know fairly well. We were talking about birthdays, any birthdays in the month of March. Yesterday, March the 20th, would have been my father and our guest speaker's 91st birthday. My father had lots to brag about in his short 46 years. One of his finest accomplishments was siring my big brother, Jim. And in addition to being very accomplished, as you'll hear in his bio, more impressive in my mind is his character. He's a terrific man. He's a great family man, good brother. He's crazy about his new granddaughter, Riley. So if we get him started this morning, he might use all the time available to talk about her. But Jim was my first friend, and occasionally as a kid, my biggest nemesis. Jim is a former dean and faculty of health sciences from 2004 to 2015 at the University of Western Ontario in London. He also served as a special advisor to the provost on 2 occasions, the acting vice provost international. He was the dean of faculty of human kinetics from 1999 to 2004 at the University of Windsor before moving up the road to London. That was a hard move for him. He loved and still loves Windsor very much. He's been well feted over the years with numerous awards and medals and honors and inductions. In fact, I think I've attended 3 retirement dinners for him. Just keeps going. Dr. Jim Weese is recognized nationally and internationally as a leading leadership expert, heralded as a transformational academic leader and a leading authority in this area. While sharing his message and traveling around the globe, killing time on airplanes and airports, he used that time to become a writer. And he has authored 3 popular books. The first one, The 5C Leader. The second one, The Leadership Life Cycle. And most recently, his 3rd book to date, The Grandpa Rules, a children's leadership book, which we'll, I'm sure, hear more about that project in just a moment. Jim now lives in London with his wife, Sherry. He's been there for quite a while now. His passions include hockey, guitar, gardening, and golf. He's a little better golfer than what I am. He's had 3 hole-in-ones and 2 albatrosses, which are double eagles. Please welcome to Rotary, Dr. Jim Weese.
All right, John, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. And can everybody hear me okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up. John,
Yes.
Can you hear me fine? Well, wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And just a couple of things. First of all, it's great to be back in Windsor, even virtually. I have great affection for the city and region, and we lived there for many, many years. And secondly, I have great affection for what you do with Rotary. You enrich our communities. I've been involved with the Rotary Club in London. I've given a few speeches and fundraising things for them. And like London, I appreciate the work that you do to enrich the Windsor-Essex County community. So kudos to all of you, and thank you for the invitation to be here today to talk a little bit about the process and writing of the Grandpa Rules. I hope you'll find this interesting. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you what are the Grandpa Rules and who wrote them. What is the motivation for the Grandpa Rules book? What's been the experience to date? How has it gone? I'd like to take you through the leadership lessons that I embedded into this children's book. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the experiences and some of the catches that we made at the last minute that I think you'll find humorous. And then at the very end, what I'll do is I've set the book to music, and it's just a 2-minute little overview that will actually show you how it all came together. I have some closing comments, answer any questions you may have, and then let you get on with your day. So thank you for having me, and know that I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So first of all, what are the Grandpa Rules? Well, they're really common sense things that that grandparents often pass on to grandchildren. These are very simple rules, but I want you to know that they're grounded in the leadership literature. As John mentioned, I do my work in the area of leadership. And I got thinking, I'd like to reach a younger audience. Kids need leadership lessons to navigate playgrounds and sport teams and school and clubs and things that they're involved in. So, I've always wanted to get at a younger audience. And this gave me an opportunity. The birth of our granddaughter Riley, gave me the opportunity to put pen to paper. So in addition to that, I wanted to talk about who created the Grandpa Rules. Well, I created the Grandpa Rules, but in the story, this young woman, this young girl who starts out at about age 8 through the book, and it takes her about 30 years through her career. And she reflects on the lessons that her grandfather passed on to her. And she writes them down. So there's the little girl, and you can see how she is aged through the story. Now, as I mentioned, this is tied in leadership. What do the best leaders do especially well? Well, they assemble and work with great teams. I think the best leaders surround themselves with superstars, and they empower and inspire them to do great things. That's how we move things forward. Number 2, they ensure clarity about what it is we are attempting to do. Think about the times you've been most frustrated in your career or life. It's probably linked to not being sure what's being expected of you and how am I going to be evaluated? What do people want from me? Number 3, and this is a big thing in the leadership literature today, and that is to communicate, engage, and connect using the principles of emotional intelligence. And I tried to work that into the book. And then finally, the best leaders never stop learning. And they not only model continual learning and development, but they support it in members of their team so that they are on the cutting edge of trends in their industry, in leadership, and how to work well with people. So keep those lessons in mind, and you'll see how I embedded them into this book. So there's the Grandpa Rules, and there's Lenny holding the book. Now, just a couple of things I want you to know that, again, the motivation. My granddaughter, Riley Garibaldi, was on her way. This is my daughter's and our first grandchild. Here's a picture of Riley. Her father is from New York. To the Detroit Red Wing fans in the crowd, and I'm one of them. This borders on child abuse, but this is my granddaughter, Riley. As mentioned, I've always wanted to reach a younger audience, but I haven't been able to come up with a hook. And I found that hook when I was doing the research for my new leadership book, The Leadership Life Cycle. And this, in particular, the impact of role models and mentors, and especially intergenerational mentoring. So that's what I think the real hook is for this particular book. Now, there are some cautions, of course. And again, I know that there are some people in your audience that deal with children's books. I needed some help. I write to a different audience, so I needed to reach out and get some help. Number 2, there's lots and lots of competition. And I wanted to try to make a book that was unique, something that was very, very different. And so far, the returns on this book have been really, really good. I had 3 objectives for the book. Number 1, I wanted to make a difference with kids. I've always had a soft spot for kids who can learn and apply the leadership concepts now and in the future. Number 2, I worked with an illustrator. This is Kaylee McInnes. She's a 4th-year student at Western. I hope this launches her career. She is very, very talented. She worked with me on the illustrations for the book, and I've been very, very pleased with, I was very pleased with the outcome. I hope that you will be too. And number 3, I wanted to do something for charities. So the proceeds for this book are going to support 4 charities: Big Brothers Big Sisters, Junior Achievement, YMCA Strong Kids, and Make-A-Wish. And as I say on the front cover, proceeds from the sale of the book will be going to charitable organizations that support girls and boys, and they serve who may not have supportive grandparents in their lives. So that's why I selected these 4 charities. My wife and I have given 2 checks to each one of these charities, and we expect more because this book is doing very well. So the experience to date, available, but through Amazon, and that's where most of the people are finding it. But it's also the River Bookshop down in Windsor has it, or in Amherstburg. It's been in Indigo. It's been sold out and twice restocked at Indigo. Same with at the Western Bookstore. As mentioned, the checks to the 4 charities. Just this past Friday, I gave a presentation to Western Senior alumni, and I'm going to be doing one in Windsor in the fall. They had 400 people come up to this event and 85 people lined up to buy books, and I was very pleased with that. The book is currently being translated into French, Spanish, and Mandarin, and should be available later this summer. So we want to get it out to other countries as well, and I hope to also have it translated into Hindi in the future. Now, I want you to meet Graham Brown. Graham Brown is one of Canada's top sport management professionals. He led Rugby Canada as president and CEO. He led youth sports as president and CEO. Graham is a former graduate student of mine from the University of Windsor. I'm very, very proud of him and all that he's accomplished. He recently sent me a note. He said, "Jim, this grandpa book is the best thing that you've ever done in your career." And I got thinking about that, because I've had a 40-year career. And so my first thought was thanks. And my second thought was really, 25 pages and some cartoons, and this is the most impactful thing I've done. But I know he meant well, and I take it as a high order compliment. I wanted it to make a difference, and I think that it is. So just a couple of things here to just tell you a little bit about it. I buried lots and lots of stuff into this book. So this is my wife, Sherry, and the main character is modeled after her as a child. She used to play softball. She grew up in a small town of Ridgetown. She grew up on Oak Street. She was born on December 29th. Those are some of the plants. I even try, as we worked through the illustrations, I wanted to try to make the Linny look a little bit like her when she was a young girl and throughout her life. And again, her middle name is Lynn, and that's where the name Linny comes from, the main character in the book. Now, the grandpa is actually named Sherwood, Grandpa Sherwood. That's named after someone little brother John here. So I worked him into the book as well. There have been some people that have suggested that the grandpa looks a little bit like me. I try to assure them that that was not the idea. And if it was, I would have had my illustrator draw Matthew McConaughey and make him 35 years old, as opposed to Walter Matthau. But nonetheless, I tried to bury some things here, and I'll show you some other things that are buried in a book like this. And authors often do things like that. So again, my 40-year career, I've wanted to inspire students, and in this case, with this book, young readers, to know that life is full of challenging moments. And I wanted to give them the confidence skills to overcome them, to know that in the end, things will be okay. So that's, again, my motivation. So let me tell you a little bit about the process of writing the book. First of all, as John mentioned, I've written other leadership books, but they're to working professionals and to students. This was new territory for me, but it didn't stop me. I would spend time in my writer's garret actually thinking about what I wanted to communicate. And I knew I needed to get some help, and I got some help. I actually wrote this book on a walking path that is behind our house. On my daily walks, I would think a little bit about the lessons. I would reflect on the lessons that our grandparent, and again, if you take some time to talk to John, our Grandpa Smith was very, very supportive. When we wanted a basketball net, he made us one. When I needed a bench press when I was training for hockey 100 years ago, he built me one. We had many, many deep conversations, and I reflected on some of those lessons as well. Now, my artistic talents is limited to this, so I knew I needed some help in terms of the graphics for the book. What I did was I wrote the book, and I just inserted clip art until I could find my illustrator to help me. And many, many people, professors who had children, my nieces and nephews with young children, grandparents that I knew, got copies of the book with clip art inserted, and I got lots and lots of feedback from them. And was I on the right track, and did it make sense? And I asked them to read it to their kids and grandkids. And I wanted to know one thing: did they ever ask the question, is this story almost over? Because that was an indication that maybe I was going on too long. I then found my illustrator, Kayla McInnes, and she was absolutely wonderful. We spent a lot of time on the central characters. So this is just a prototype of the young girl that's throughout the story. I wanted those Disney big eyes. I wanted that inquisitive look and that respectful look. And again, this is what we put together. And again, as mentioned, I test marketed this book with lots and lots of people before it actually went to the publisher and hit the bookstores. Now, I needed some help, and Western grad, and you may have read her books as well as you read it to your children and grandchildren, Franklin the Turtle. The author of the book, Paulette Bourgeois, is a personal friend of mine. She's a graduate of my faculty up at Western. I got to know Paulette very, very well, and we spent a lot of time on some early editions of the book, as I got also help from a local children's author, Judith Ann Sadler, as well. And I got great, great feedback from them. They were so helpful in terms of making sure the book was inclusive, making sure the images were appropriate. And I like to say my book is for people age 5 to 105. And I'm finding that recent graduates, university students are finding value in it as well as young children. Now, one of the things that Paulette gave me right off the bat was, and I remember meeting with her, and she said, Jim, you got a problem with your second word, grandpa. Grandpa makes sense in our culture, but it doesn't make sense in other cultures. And if you want the book to be inclusive, you've got to somehow find a way to communicate that. So I remember being on my walk, and I was out walking, and I thought, well, what am I going to, I'm 2 words into my book and I've got a problem already. So what I came up with, and I remember this day vividly because I actually turned around on my walk path and actually sprinted back to my house and got down into my basement to my writer's area. And I thought, this is how I'm going to handle it. I dedicated the book to those we call Grandpa, Nanny, and you can see a whole list of names and other endearing names. While your titles may differ, the love, devotion, dreams you have for your grandchildren are universal and applauded. May you continue to make a difference. And I thought that that would be the way to deal with that. I fired that off to Paulette. She said, you nailed it. And I felt I was on my way and I could continue. So that's sort of the help that Paulette provided for me. I provided a message to grandparents and parents, grandparents, and readers of all ages in the early stages of the book as well. Again, it's trying to uplift and inspire them to believe in themselves, and life is full of great possibilities, and seize them, get after them, have confidence and skill to move forward. So again, as we go through the book, you can see the cover, you can see it's how it all come together, the inclusive multicultural images, and there's a message from Linny right on the early pages. I can't wait to tell you about my story. Let me tell you about my grandpa. So let me walk you through the book, and I'll show you how I embedded those grandpa rules on the way through. First of all, here's Linny. And again, this is the only picture of her as an infant, but she was born December 29th, my wife's birthday. Mother wanted a Christmas baby. Dad wanted the baby born in January because Dad knew something about relative age factor. And however, I'm my own person. I arrived on my own schedule. Let's get back to Dad a little bit. What did Dad know? Well, the relative age factor talks about the advantages of being born early in the year, socially, educationally, and certainly in the area of sport, which is my field. What do I know? I'm in Red Wing territory down here, but take a look. This is the prospect camp of the Toronto Maple Leafs. 81% of the athletes that were in their prospect camp were born the first 6 months of the year. 54% were born the first 3 months. 35%, 9 of them were born in January, 0 in November or December. And of those 5, 2 of them were goalies. One from Phoenix, one from Russia, where again, it was on development, not in our system, and one was from Vancouver. I think this is compelling evidence that the relative age factor is alive and well. It's not only with hockey players, it's also with racehorses. Look at the Triple Crown winners. They're all born the first little part of the year. You got to time this right. Takes 365 days to make a horse. I don't know any other way to explain that. If I was a breeder of elite racehorses, I would be pumping in red wine and Barry White music in January and February to build those Triple Crown winners. So again, that's just one of the little things that I have I put in as I present this. It's not in the book, but relative age factor is alive and well. Well, let's get into some things that actually are in the book, and we'll start with the idea of building great teams. Great leaders build great teams, or they work well with people and make team players really, really strong. And Lenny is no different. These are some childhood friends. You can see the multicultural, the idea that I learned so much by having my eyes and ears open to their family traditions and learning about them. Grandpa rule number 5, surround yourself with people who share your values and support you, who are confident and tell you that you're when you're going off course. As I was a dean for 17 years, I needed associate deans that were around me that would tell me when I was running with scissors, because I run with scissors a lot. I break eggs and I like to make a difference. I have a lot of ideas and I need people to tell me when I'm going off course, and I do a lot. So the importance of surrounding yourself with great people and the team approach to leadership. Grandpa just lived around the corner, and here's a picture of Grandpa. And again, Grandpa lived around the corner. Lenny visited him, most days, and she used to say he called me Lenny, and I enjoyed my time with Grandpa. So here's Grandpa. He's got a golf picture. There's Grandma and Grandpa over his shoulder. And here's another little plant. There are my leadership books that are on his reading table. So another shameless plant that I've put into this book. Okay, where are we going here? Now, the idea of intergenerational mentoring. We know that mentoring is an important part of leader development. But Andy Rooney once said, the best classroom in the world is at the feet of an elderly person. I don't think we do this particularly well in our culture. However, there are cultures that do this particularly well. Brother John and I grew up at Walpole Island, so we're well aware of some of the traditions and how elders are held in such high regard and respect and pass knowledge down to other generations. So that was very moving for me as a young person when I met some Indigenous friends and got to know them. And I think that we could do even more in this area. That's the whole idea of behind the book, where grandparents and parents will read it to young readers and insert their examples of leader development and some of their experiences. It doesn't have to be in sport. It can be in many, many different other areas. So here's Grandpa and Lenny, and one of the things, Lenny would go shopping with Grandpa, and she noticed that everybody really liked Grandpa, that he listened, that he told interesting stories. He knew what was happening in terms of connecting with people. This is emotional intelligence, which is the key to leadership. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, I often refer to the work of Daniel Goleman, who talks about how important it is. There's an 85% correlation between emotional intelligence and leadership success. It's far more important than intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Well, I break it down into 3 things. Number 1, people who are self-aware. They know how they're coming across. They know when to talk, when to be quiet. They're very, very good listeners. Number 2, they manage their emotions. They don't fly off the handle. They listen, try to get at the root of situations. And number 3, they have genuine empathy. They genuinely care about other people. The nice thing about it is emotional intelligence can be developed. That they communicate frequently, consistently, and honestly. They focus their attention on the important matters. Again, if you follow me on social media, you'll see some of the things that I post on emotional intelligence, and I work a lot with my students on giving them, hopefully developing the skills to help them develop their emotional intelligence. So this is what Grandpa did very well. He did it in the grocery store. He did it in interactions with other people. Lenny took notice of that. Now, there were lots of kids in her town. John and I grew up in Dresden. My wife grew up in Ridgetown. And when you grow up in a small town, you often play against people who are older than you. Sometimes you're the last pick on teams. Sometimes you don't get to touch the ball too much, but you're always being challenged. But Grandpa would always put things in perspective. When Lenny would talk to him about her sport experiences, he would say, "Did you have fun? Were you a good sport? Did you try your best?" Now, I want you to know that when I was in Windsor, I used to coach youth sport with a fellow by the name of Wayne Marino. And here's a picture of Wayne. Wayne's a longtime professor, now retired from the University of Windsor. Bill, you would know Wayne from our hockey days. I got this from Wayne, and I acknowledge him in the book for this. It really puts perspective of youth sport, answering those 3 questions. And Grandpa would always talk to Lenny about these 3 questions when she would share her sport experiences, both good and challenging. Now, he also encouraged Lenny to dream big. Dreaming big is, I think, important as long as you have a strategy around it as well. He'd say, Lenny, you can be anything you want, but you can't be everything. Dream big, be open to opportunities, but most of all, don't compare yourself to others. Be the best Lenny you can be. And that's what she did. This is Grandpa rule number 2. Live your life. Follow your dreams. Don't live the dreams of others. Be what you want to be. You know, John will tell you that our father, birthday yesterday, and thanks for acknowledging that, John was a car dealer. You know, he may have had some visions of John or I taking over his car dealership down the road, but we had different plans. I was interested in sport. John was more into the media area. We followed our dreams. It's interesting following students as well. I want you to meet Soumya Krishna. Soumya was a student of ours in the Faculty of Health Sciences at Western. You know, she came into our faculty with about a 98% average and graduated with a 97% average. But she was actually the 21st Rhodes Scholar from Western. We prepared her in some mock interviews. One of my colleagues asked her, what's your greatest accomplishment? And she said, you know, I went home one day, I took a course in health promotion. It really changed my perspective. My parents had groomed me from the time I was a toddler to be a medical doctor, and that was the plan. But I realized it was their plan, not mine. And I had to tell them that I wasn't going to follow their dream. I was going to follow mine. And you may think that's a very simple thing, she said, but in our culture, you don't question your parents. And that's my greatest accomplishment. Ironically, she got the same question in the Rhodes Scholar interview, and she earned a Rhodes Scholarship. I'm not suggesting that was the difference maker, but it's an example of following your dream, not the dream of others. Now, we know that kids will have confrontations and disagreements on the playground. Lenny had her share as well, but Grandpa would counsel her as well. He'd say, Lenny, be critical of ideas, never of the person presenting them. I think that's really good policy for adults as well. Because again, we make good decisions when there's a difference of opinion, and we can really drill down on what it is we are attempting to accomplish. Agree on values. Strategy should always be open. You know, Lenny used to play baseball or softball on the Oak Street Diamond, as my wife did growing up. And, you know, sometimes playing against older kids, it didn't go as well as she would like. But Grandpa would always ask the 3 questions. And that kind of put things in perspective as well. Believe in yourself and your abilities. Set clear priorities. This is Grandpa Rule 4. Never let others tell you what you can't do. And remember, don't let anyone outwork you. Just work hard. You know, if I've had any success in my life and career, it's been due to work ethic. It's not been due to other things. And there will be impediments along the road. Expect them, but also have the skill and confidence to know that you can overcome them. This is, again, Grandpa Rule number 9. Expect them, but know you'll be better from the experience. We can learn from all experiences. Some we might wish to shorten, but we can learn from everything. This is a picture of me from the wooden stick era of my Lancer hockey days. I had coaches that would say, don't blame, you know, after a loss, don't blame others, get better. And that stuck with me. And the whole idea, that's why I've been such a believer in inter-university athletics, because it does provide learning opportunities if we have coaches that really put things in perspective like my coaches did. You know, Grandpa said the same thing. Don't blame others, get better. And in fact, I'm going to help you get better. So each through the summer on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Grandpa and Lenny would go to the ballpark and they'd play catch and field grounders and take batting practice. And Lenny found herself getting better and better each day, being able to compete now with the older kids. You know, oftentimes after a practice session with Grandpa, they'd go for ice cream. One day, Lenny made the mistake of throwing a wrapper on the ground, and Grandpa was quite firm with her. And he said, Lenny, we always leave things better than we found them. Pick that piece of paper up and go find one more and put it in, because you're going to leave things better than you found them. That's, again, another Grandpa rule. Make a difference. Leave every situation better than you found it. And it's actually one of the great measures of leadership. Ronald Reagan used to say this, as have others. Leave situations better than you found them. That's a mark of true leadership. Now, again, Lenny was involved, and it can be cruel for kids when they're the last pick on sports teams. And Lenny experienced this, and she talked to Grandpa about it. And Grandpa said, "You know what? When you get to be one of the captains and leading, you can put together a new policy. So there's never a last pick. When you get down towards the end, Lenny would say, 'Give me these three,' and the other person would say, 'Give me these three.' Now, I inserted some friends' names in here. And what's really interesting is the friends that I didn't insert are that they've shared with me that they're disappointed that they weren't listed in the book. But I've told them, look, you weren't the last pick. You were picked much earlier. And that seemed to make them go away. And they appreciated that. But Donnie and Kelvin, and you're going to hear about Donnie and Kelvin. John will know these are two of my childhood buddies and my best friends today. Inclusion is such an important part of leadership. Ginny Romany talks about this, and she says, not everyone has the same access. So you have to think about inclusion in terms of leadership and making sure people feel valued, that what they do makes a difference. It's been a big part of my leadership practice as well. I tried to work that into the book. Now, Lenny is growing up. You can see she's getting a little older. She's off to high school. And again, she's always been encouraged to try new things. Her amazing teachers inspired her. Her parents and grandparents inspired her. She even got involved in theater to really challenge herself and to test her limits. Grandpa rule number 7, in life, take chances to grow and challenge yourself and learn from every opportunity. And she did. She even took piano lessons, and Grandpa would come over and listen to her play, but she wasn't very good at piano. And one time she said, Grandpa, I want to quit. And Grandpa said, you made a commitment, Lenny. You must honor it. We don't quit anything. Quitting partway through is something that's never an option. So she kept at it. She didn't become a concert pianist, but she learned a lesson in commitment. And that's Grandpa rule number 8, never quit. Always see commitments through to the end. If you decide not to do it next year, that's good. But I don't think we do our kids favors when we allow them to quit. Well, things got better. Her practice sessions paid off. She grew, her confidence grew, and she started to have some success on the baseball field. Grandpa talked to her about this. She said, he said, each time you move up a level, and again, I experienced this in my sport career, you're going to find that you have to challenge yourself to be better, that the players around you are better. You always have to believe in yourself, keep working hard, keep trying to improve, because that's an important lesson. Well, she went to college, and I say college because the book is actually marketed in the States as well. Again, Grandpa talked to her about what each level you're going to have to prove yourself once again, academically and on the sport field, because she played softball in college. She had a great sport experience. She dedicated herself to her studies and to her sport, and it paid off for her. She graduated with a degree in business administration, and now she was ready for the working world. Well, out she goes, and she interviews for jobs, but she found with people with more education experience were getting the roles. Remember the rule, don't complain, get better. And that's exactly what she did. Grandpa talked about getting her ticket punched. My dear friend Richard Petty, who I know has been a speaker at the Rotary Club, talks about getting your ticket punched and how important that is. And I've worked that in as well into the book and credited Richard. She remembered Grandpa's advice. Think big, believe in yourself, have a plan, work hard, and make it happen. So she was disappointed once again. Grandpa rule, expect setbacks, learn from them, and be better for the experience. So Grandpa encouraged her to dream big. Dream big she did, but she knew she was going to have to get some help and some new experiences. Well, she thought about the dreams. She said, I want to be a president of a company someday. And again, this was at a time when she was not getting the entry-level roles. She knew it'd be challenging, and she knew that other talented people wanted the same opportunity. So she had to do some things to prepare herself. What did she do? She went back to school. Of course, the Ohio State University, I know you're in Michigan territory, but that's where I went to school, another plant, to earn an advanced degree. She took positions with other companies as well, not based on what they were paying, but based on the learning opportunities to help prepare herself for future opportunities. Never stop learning. Grandpa rule number 6. Life is full of opportunities to learn, embrace them, and strive to be better in each area each day. Well, fast forward, her break finally came. She got the education, she got the experience, she continued to apply for roles. She had an opportunity to become a president of a company that shared her values, and she was so excited. She thought about Grandpa's life lessons through the interview, and the interview went well, and they offered her the position of president. So she was very happy about that. Well, you know, Grandpa said, I'm very proud of you, but Linny, never lose your roots. Be healthy, be happy, and remember to stay in touch with your family and friends. Remember those 4 kids that earlier on? Well, here they are as adults. They remain friends today. And he was so right. You know, always give time, Grandpa rule number 10, to your health, to your family, your career, your friends, and your community. Relationships matter. Build and nurture them. The Beatles had it right. Just need a little help from my friends. You know, this is one of my proudest accomplishments. My best friends in life are my childhood buddies from Dresden. Here's a picture of Donnie Martin and his wife, Cal McCabe and his wife, and me and my wife. When we turned 65, we headed to Nashville together. We even got some T-shirts printed up with our baby pictures on it. We were so close. We're as close today as we were as kids. You know, Clayton Christensen is a Harvard professor. And again, these are some of the most accomplished people, but he talked about this late in his career and he wrote a book on it. How will you measure your life? Because he found that many of his graduates were very, very unhappy. They were pursuing career at the expense of family and friends. And so he talked about this in this book. And it's really been an impactful book for me and something I worked into the Grandpa Rules as well. Yeah. So again, as I return to the leadership lessons, great teams, great visions, make sure there's clarity, communicate and engage, and maintain a passion.
Yeah.
For... Yeah. Yep.
Jim.
Yes.
We're getting the bums rush from the Holiday Inn folks. They've got a meeting coming in.
Okay.
Let me just apologize.
Okay.
I listened to you and have listened to you all my life, but I want to really thank you so much for that wonderful talk. I found it very, very interesting. I think all of our members did as well.
Okay.
It was a great learning occasion for all of us and great reminders.
Yep.
Particularly the relative age theory I thought was good and the verifying evidence of that. And perhaps your best advice was, I remember once you told me never to take a laxative with a sleeping pill. I've never forgot that. I will give you your speaker's gift the next time I see you.
Okay.
If I don't eat it.
You have some autographed books.
And yes, and I've got a book here that's been autographed as well. So somebody can see me about that. But Jim, thanks so much for giving us your time and your expertise.
Okay.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.